Christian Zionists inflame hatred of Netzari Israelites, part 2. Our keynote scripture is 2 Kepha, which in English is 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 3. This scripture text reads as thus: "And many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. And through covetousness, they with feigned words make merchandise of you, whose judgments now of a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not." Selah. Currently, Christian Zionist movement is inflaming the hatred of the world towards Netzari Israelite believers in Yeshua. This is due to the fact that the world cannot distinguish the difference between a Messianic Hebrew Israelite in Yeshua from a pro-Zionist Jewish or Christian Zionist who supports with unwavering devotion the corrupt and abominable policies of the Zionist government of the state of Israel. As a result, the hatred that many in the world today have towards the unjust Zionist state of Israel and their Zionist Christian supporters, particularly Zionist Christians in America, has caused international hatred towards anyone identified as a Jew of any kind of Israelite heritage, as well as anyone who is a Jew of ancient Israelite bloodlines, who has a Messianic faith in Yeshua, as do Netzari Hebrew Israelites, who we are. So because the world cannot distinguish between non-Zionist Netzari Messianic Jews as ourselves of ancient Israelite origins, and cannot distinguish us from, the world cannot distinguish us from the Zionist imposter Jews of the synagogue of Satan and their Christian Zionist backers, particularly those in the American government who support the military of the Zionist state of Israel and their unjust policies. As a result of this repugnant relationship between Christian Zionists of America, who themselves have a history of oppressing the original ancient Jews in America during slavery, as well as in later years, siding with the oppressors of Hebrew Israelites in America, while claiming themselves to be followers of Jesus Christ, whose name is Yeshua the Messiah, whom they call Jesus Christ. They have a history of siding with the Jewish Babylonian Talmud point of view that Black Israelites in America are under the curse of Canaan and are actually descendants of Ham and not from our true heritage of Shem. And thereby they tend to try to turn the tables on us as being imposters and use that as a means to justify their ridicule and oppression of us. Therefore, they are hypocritical phonies, according to what Kepha, the Apostle Peter, stated in 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 2 through 3, quote, "And many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. And through covetousness shall they with feigned words make merchandise of you, whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not." Notice the phrase in verse 2 of 2 Peter chapter 2, which states, "By reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of," unquote. In Peter chapter 2, the prophet Kepha is warning about false messianic prophets in the last days who will misrepresent the truth of prophecy for their own gain, and then will, as a result, make the legitimate followers of the Messiah Yeshua and the way of truth that we espouse to be evil spoken of. Such is the case expressed in our lesson tonight entitled Christian Zionists Inflame Hatred of Netzari Israelites. We will attempt to show how Christian Zionist false prophecies, such as from the late great Planet Earth author, Hal Lindsey, the pastor in Texas, Hagee, Christian Broadcasting Network, Trinity Broadcasting Network, and yes, even among our own people, T.D. Jakes, who are misleading many Christians to believe and support a lie, and actually become deceived to believe and support lies that will lead up to a coming world war. The Christian Zionist support that appears to be imminent between what we'll see emerging now in the Middle East between Israel, America against Iran, that could flare up at any moment. So in any case, whether this particular sequence of war happens or not, it is clear that the Christian Zionists are in total support of the Zionist lobby's influence on American foreign policy to support the Israelis in such a war, because they have believed the Zionist false prophet teachings and Christian preachers' lies that ultimately Yah will always support the Zionist state of Israel, even though the Zionist state of Israel hates the Messiah Yeshua. They hate the Son of Yah. How can you be supported by the Father when you hate his Son? He that has not the Son has not the Father. And thereby they do not in any way qualify to receive the support of Yah's full endorsement for any war they fight. Yet the prophet Isaiah says in chapter 17, that of Isaiah, that the Israelis will be ultimately decimated by a war. This is what is seen in chapter 17, verse 3 of Isaiah, that the Israelis will ultimately be decimated by a war that, based on historical precedents in Isaiah's time, will come from an enemy nation that's to the east of the land of Israel. Because in Isaiah's time, around 720 BC, the Eastern army that devastated cities in Israel came from east of the Euphrates River, which flows through Iraq on up to Turkey. In that time, the army from the east was the Assyrian Empire, which at that time encompassed parts of eastern Syria, western Iran, southern Turkey, and northern Iraq. But though in Isaiah's time this happened, that Assyria did cross the Euphrates, and it did decimate Damascus, and it did decimate Israel. Yet the prophecy in chapter 17 of Isaiah describes another war in the future, in the last days, in which Damascus, the capital of Syria, will be totally destroyed from ever being a city again. Today, or just last night, the Israelis bombed near the presidential palace of the president of Syria in Damascus. There's more to come of this. In Isaiah 71, the Targum Aramaic text states, cursing to give Damascus to drink. Behold, Damascus is removed so as to be no more a kingdom, and it shall be as a city laid waste. This did not happen in Isaiah's time, that Damascus was forever ruined from being a city again. Even though the Assyrians sacked Damascus In Isaiah's time, eventually Damascus was rebuilt. And even now, at this time, in the year of 2025 AD, Damascus is still the capital of Syria. But if we look at the events surrounding Damascus in Isaiah's time as a parallel precedent for a future destruction of Damascus that will be greater than its past destruction by the Assyrians roughly around 720 BC, nearly 2,700 years ago, that there's a coming destruction that will be greater and that will be far more impactful that's coming. Then also we should also be looking at the time of the fall of the Zionist state of Israel, according to Isaiah 17:3, the Targum text, which calls this current Zionist state of Israel the government of Ephraim, because of the actual bloodline Israelites, some of whom are there in the land of Israel today, which right now is beset and besieged by a forest fire disaster as we speak, which can be seen to be prophesied in Deuteronomy chapter 9 and verse 3, that precedes a time when Yah will destroy the Zionist state of Israel, as stated in Deuteronomy chapter 9, verse 3. It states, understand therefore this day that Yah the Elohim is he which goeth over before thee as a consuming fire. He shall destroy them. He shall bring them down before thy face, so shalt thou drive them out and destroy them quickly, as Yah hath said unto thee. Verse 4, Deuteronomy 9, speak not thou in thine heart after that Yah the Elohim have cast them out from before thee, saying, for my righteousness Yah have brought me in to possess this land. But for the wickedness of these nations, Yah doth drive them out from before you. Yah's talking to you tonight, Israel. Now, for thy righteousness, or for the uprightness of thine heart, dost thou go to possess their land, not for your righteousness, or for the uprightness of thine heart dost thou go to possess their land, but for the wickedness of these nations, Yah the Elohim, that drive them out from before you, and that he may perform the word which Yah swore unto thy fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which was to give you that land. And before you go back, he says there will be a series of disasters, like this fire we see just sweeping Israel. And having been there many times, it's unprecedented what I'm seeing. And it was not terrorists who had so much to do with it. This was something from Yah that's taking place, which should serve as a sign to Israelites today that Yah is preparing to drive those people out that currently occupy and hold that land right now, called the Zionist state of Israel. And that government's getting ready to fall as he's preparing that land to get ready for your coming in. When I lived in Africa, one of the big signs I knew that it was close to crop planting time in Africa was I would see farmers there burning their fields just before they started planting. And I didn't know what was going on now. And I asked some of my brothers there, I said, why are these fields on fire? Isn't this a disaster? They said, no. They said that they burned the field to burn up all of the weeds and refuse vegetation around it so they can plant and grow a new crop. And so every year they would burn it. Well, you can see the flames going through the state of Israel right now. Yah's burning it up. There's more of this to come, not that this is the final stage of that, but you can see the process has begun because no terrorist did this. Yah's doing this there because it's close to your time to come back to the land. And this is what Isaiah 17 is talking about, because even last night, the Israelis, while their land is on fire, they're bombing Damascus. So all of these things are fitting together. Deuteronomy chapter 9, verse 3 through 4 and 5, and also chapter 17 of Isaiah, verses 1 through 3. So then we are looking at a time of the fall, the coming fall of the Zionist state of Israel, according to Isaiah 17:3 in the Targum text, which calls this current Zionist state of Israel the government of Ephraim, because there are some bloodline Israelites who are there in the minority, and they are primarily descendants of the northern Israelite tribes who were assigned with the rulership out of the tribe of Ephraim, whose capital was Samaria in northern Israel in Isaiah's time. As stated in Isaiah chapter 17, verse 3, Targum text, the government shall cease from Ephraim and the kingdom from Damascus, and the remnant of the solitary ones from Syria. Their glory shall be as the glory of the children of Israel, saith Yah of hosts. In Isaiah's prophecy, in chapter 17, verses 1 through 3, it states that when Damascus is permanently destroyed by a nation, which by historical implication and parallel would be referring to a nation east of the Euphrates River, just as Isaiah was from the east of the Euphrates River when it came and destroyed Damascus in Isaiah's time around 722 BC, 2,700 years ago. So then it is only logical to assume from historical precedent that a future nation east of the Euphrates River will emerge to permanently destroy Damascus in the latter days of Isaiah's prophecy in chapter 17. And this same power would also bring down the Zionist state of Israel and devastate its cities in the latter days, just as happened in Isaiah's time, but will happen again in the future, as stated in Isaiah 17, verses 4 through 10. Quote, and it shall come to pass at that time that the glory of Jacob shall be humbled, and the riches of his glory shall be carried away. And it shall be as when one gathereth the standing harvest, and reapeth the ears with his arm, and it shall be as one that is gathering ears in the valley of giants. Yet a gleaning shall be left in it, as in the shaking of the olive tree, 2 or 3 berries on the top of the uppermost branch. So shall the righteous be left lonely in the midst of the world among the kingdoms, saith Yah, the Elohim of Israel. At that time a man shall stay himself upon the service of his maker, and his eyes shall hopefully look for the word, the Memra, the Holy One of Israel, the Messiah. He shall not rest upon the altars, the work of his hands, or stay himself upon that which his fingers have prepared, neither upon the groves nor upon the sun pillars. At that time, the cities of their strength shall be as a fortification that was laid waste, and that was waste from before the children of Israel in the time of the Jebusites and the Hivites, and each shall be a desolation, because thou hast forsaken the Elohim of thy salvation, and thou hast not remembered the fear of the mighty one, whose Memra, the word, the Messiah, was thy support. Therefore, thou hast planted a choice plant and hast multiplied despicable works. So the question is, who is this nation today that is like ancient Assyria and is east of the Euphrates, who will bring down both the Damascus Syrian government as well as devastate the fall of the Zionist state of Israel and its cities in these latter days. Now, there's a clue as to who this is in Ezra chapter 6, verse 22, where the title King of Assyria is applied to a ruler of a nation east of the Euphrates, as stated in Ezra chapter 6, verse 22, the book of Ezra, chapter 6, verse 22, as stated, and kept the feast of unleavened bread 7 days with joy, for Yah had made them joyful and turned the heart of the king of Assyria unto them to strengthen their hands in the work of the house of Elohim, the Elohim of Israel. In this verse, in Ezra chapter 6, verse 22, the king of Persia is called the king of Assyria. Since Persia is today modern Iran, which is located east of the Euphrates, it would not look to be a remote possibility that Iran could be the destroyer of Damascus. This bears watching. And that Iran could be that nation that brings down the state of Israel and devastates its cities as described in Isaiah 17. This all bears watching because we know these nations are lining up to fire mass destruction against each other any day now. Even though America is seeking to have talks in the coming days to try to come up with a plan to resolve the crisis, the Israelis have already served notice they can't wait, and they're ready at any moment to initiate a war with Iran, and Iran is ready for them to initiate a war, and it will be quite a war. Also based upon historical precedents from Isaiah's time, parts of what is Iran today were actually once parts of the Assyrian Empire in Isaiah's time. Also during Ezra the scribe's time, around 450 BC, the kings of Persia, which is today Iran, ruled over all the regions of ancient Assyria and thereby could be called king of Assyria during that time, in the time of Ezra. So it is from the prospect of this coming war between America and Israel against Iran that we should take note of the horrendous problems that such a war could have on the entire world, on the impact of such a war on the world's economy. If there's a war between Israel, Iran, and America, particularly upon the energy sector of the economy of the world out of that region, that could crash the economies of nations all around the world. This is how strategically a critical time we are in at this time. All of this, as Yeshua said, bears watching. As he said, watch and pray. Furthermore, it could be possible that if an Iran-Israel war did take place and cause the fall of the Zionist state of Israel and cause suffering and wars around the world, and invoke what is commonly called World War III, that there could be a worldwide backlash from the nations around the world against anything that is called Israel, including against Hebrew Israelites, who are, as we are, Netzari Messianic, because as a Netzari Messianic, we're lumped in two unfavorable categories that the world would see as the ones who initiated a devastating war that messed them up and their economies. And they want to lay blame on anything that appeared as Israel. They'll want to lay blame, the nations, on anything connected with Judaism or Jews, because that's the Zionist state of Israel. But then the world nations would be upset with any kind of Zionist Christians as well, because they were the ones who set up the state of Israel to invoke disaster around the world with a world war that could erupt right there between Israel, Iran, and the United States. And because as Netzari Israelites, we have been identified with Jews, whether we accept that or not. Anytime you go in any part of the world, you say you're an Israelite. If I go to India and I say I'm an Israelite, they're going to first thing say, oh, you're a Jew. They won't say, oh, you're a black Hebrew Israelite. They'll just look at you as a Jew. And then if you claim faith in Yeshua, and you're not in Christianity, but you're in the Netzari teachings of Yeshua, but you can go to any part of the world and say that you believe in Yeshua, whom they mostly call Jesus. They'll lump you in with the Christian Zionists as well. So you see, we would be the beneficiaries of the byproduct of worldwide hatred that the people of the world will have towards anything to do with Israel or anything that could be connected to the Zionist Christian movement. So you see, this could be the kind of hatred around the world that has been instigated against us by the foolish and demonic policies of the Zionist lobby in America, comprised of Zionist Christian and Israeli Jewish lobbyists combined, along with the policies of the Zionist state of Israel. And though we had nothing to do with the war with Iran or the war with Israel, but because of who we are, the world will not take time to distinguish that there's a difference between us and them, including us who are Hebrew Israelites, who are Netzari Messianic, because we would not only be lumped together by the world as being part of the Israeli Zionists, but because of our faith in Yeshua, we would also be lumped together with Christian Zionists who supported the corrupt Zionist government of the state of Israel. And this is what Kepha is referring to regarding the false prophets, of whom some are present today among Zionist Christians as Hagee, others, countless others, Paula White, Kenneth Copeland, Creflo Dollar, T.D. Jakes, Christian Broadcasting Network, Trinity Broadcasting Network, many Christian Zionist rabbis, as Jonathan Cahn and others. They are those to whom the Apostle Peter is saying that many shall follow their pernicious ways. He said they make merchandise of people by supporting the Zionist state of Israel and supporting Zionist causes. And many, said the prophet Kepha, many shall fall by their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth will be evil spoken of. The way of truth from the scriptures that we teach and proclaim and study and understand from the Hebrew prophets. The world will not be able to distinguish, to disconnect what it's saying in regarding to the Netzari Israelites from what they have been shown by the televangelists who have supported the false synagogue of Israel. You see, so the prophet Kepha, the apostle Peter, he says this, and through covetousness shall they with fiends' words make merchandise of you. Their TV broadcast commercials saying, oh, for so much money, if you help the Jewish people, God will bless you, because he that blesses Israel is going to be blessed by God. And they run with the lie that those people that hate the Father's only begotten Son and hate his people and support oppression against the true Israelite people. That by supporting the enemies of Yah, that these people can be blessed by sending money and donations through the U.S. government, who bankroll the military of the state of Israel more than any other nation in the world. And so much so, you almost begin to think that they value the military protection of Israel more than they do the military protection of America. This is what Kepha is talking about in chapter 2, verse 3 of 2 Peter. And through covetousness shall they make with feigned words, that is false, fake words, false biblical interpretations and prophecies that are rampant, that their televangelists, preachers teach on TV and on YouTube from the Zionist Christian church, and how their scenarios always line up that somehow Netanyahu is a hero when he's really a villain. He's really of Satan. And these are the finished words Peter is talking about in these last days. And he said, they make merchandise of you, whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not, which means as you see these fires just burning up over Israel right now, Yah's servant notice their judgment lingereth not much long, and their damnation slumbereth not much long. These all bear watching. It's possible that our Master Yeshua is referring to a worldwide backlash of hatred towards Netzari Israelites because of a coming war caused by the Zionist government of Israel and the United States, which was supported by Christian Zionists, and that will crash the economies of the world if such a war emerged as what appears to be on the horizon. This all bears watching. As our Master states in Matthew 24, verse 7 through 12, he states, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Then shall many be offended and betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. Right now, we've got many false prophets making false prophecies that the Most High will guard the corrupt Zionist state of Israel as though they are the apple of Yah's eye, when they are really the enemies of Yah, oppressing his true Israelite people, who are really the apple of Yah's eye, who have themselves cursed the Master Yeshua in their Talmud and have laid racist accusations against the chosen children of Israel. This is why in the Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5, when our time comes to be redeemed, the bride says, I am black and beautiful. Look not upon me because I'm black. Why? It's because the world looks at being black as a curse, according to the synagogue of Satan's influence that they managed to spread even into Christianity. And they've taken on the corrupt caste of paganism out of India. And as a result, Yah's servant noticed there's going to appear a man with skin that's dark bronze and hair like wool that's going to tear the hell out of all the nations of the world. And they will say, as it said in the opening of the sixth seal, hide us from the face of him that sitteth upon the throne and from the Lamb, for the day of their wrath has come. So our Master Yeshua says, many false prophets shall rise. And we see these televangelists and Christian Zionists, they're all over the place with their interpretations of biblical prophecies that are way off course, but they deceive many. including many of our own people. And then he says, and because iniquity, that is lawlessness, shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But our Master Yeshua encourages us to keep on fulfilling the spread of the good news of redemption to Israelites and to the world. Even when the backlash of world hatred and persecution comes against us because of world incitement due to the false prophets' deceptions among Zionist Christians to instigate wars and rumors of war that could lead up to the destruction of many levels of the livelihood of many nations. As our Master Yeshua states in Matthew 24, verse 13 through 14. But he that shall endure to the end, the same shall be saved. He that endures to the time of the end, the same shall be saved. And this good news, yes, this is good news for you, Israel, bad news for them. And this good news of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, because Israel is scattered among all nations. So the good news of Israelite redemption will have to be preached in all nations to the Israelites scattered in all nations. And then shall the end come. Hallelujah.